To now adjourn, and I call the honourable member for Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since coming to office, the Abbott government's given $1.1 billion of tax breaks back to multinationals, while cutting family payments for low and middle income households and cutting the wages of the cleaners who clean their offices. With so much recent speculation and concern about how much tax big companies really pay, there's need for hard numbers to better inform the public debate. At present, there's simply no way to find out how much tax the largest companies pay, or easily compare the reporting of publicly listed ones. A Senate inquiry into corporate tax avoidance has underlined the need for greater tax transparency in Australia. A third of submissions to that inquiry backed the public release of more information on how much tax companies really pay. A majority of those submissions raised concerns about the availability and accuracy of corporate tax data. And it's clear that the Abbott government needs to act to improve tax transparency. The first step is an easy one. Labor's already provided a clear path to a more informed debate on multinational tax avoidance. Under new transparency rules introduced in 2013 by Labor, the Australian Taxation Office is required to start publishing this data from the 2013-14 financial year. Labor has been working to bring forward the release of this data, giving Australians access to more information than ever before about the tax affairs of major companies. If the House were to pass my private member's bill, our plan would bring forward the release of data about the tax paid by companies with total income over $100 million. Madam Speaker, we need an evidence-based debate on multinational tax avoidance, and we need it now. The choice for the Abbott government is clear. If it wants to support this informed debate, it will support Labor's plan to increase transparency. But sadly, it appears that an informed debate isn't part of the government's plans. Leaks coming out of the Liberal Party room confirm the government's gearing up to dump Labor's plan to let Australians see how much tax big multinationals pay. The Assistant Treasurer has reportedly announced to his colleagues he's working on plans to roll back the transparency laws and bring up the secrecy shutters. This would be yet another example of the Abbott government siding with the big end of town against the interests of the Australian community. In government, Wayne Swan and David Bradbury put together a significant package to tackle multinational tax avoidance. In opposition, Labor's proposed a crackdown on multinational tax avoidance, improving the budget bottom line by an extra $1.9 billion through a package developed based on OECD advice and costed by the Parliamentary Budget Office, which tackles things such as debt shifting, information exchange and providing the tax office with the resources it needs. But instead of supporting this crackdown, the Liberals have reopened $1 billion of tax loopholes. In MyEFO 2013, they promised a targeted anti-avoidance provision. In MyEFO 2014, they broke that promise. And now, by rolling back these transparency laws, they plan to further shield big multinationals from public scrutiny. Without transparent tax reporting, it will be easier for some big firms to continue to avoid paying their fair share of tax. The Liberal Party's tried to block better transparency on tax affairs of big multinationals since the day Labor first proposed it. Not content with voting against the transparency laws and dragging their feet on implementing them for 18 months, the Abbott government's now working to actively undermine them. The Treasurer and the Prime Minister are full of big talk about cracking down on tax avoidance. When it counts in the party room and in the parliament, their government constantly lets multinational tax avoiders off the hook. When public reports come out about companies paying too little tax, they question the accuracy of the figures. But when Labor suggests that the tax office might report accurate data, they oppose it. We currently have a bill before Parliament to increase tax transparency, but the Liberals oppose it. Australians can judge for themselves which party is really committed to making sure multinationals pay their fair share. Inequality is at a 75-year high. Over the last generation, the top 1% share has doubled. Top 0.1% share has tripled. Earnings have risen 3 times as fast for the top 10th as for the bottom 10th. And the wealthiest 3 people in Australia now have more wealth than the poorest 1 million. Just once, I'd like to see this government stand up for the little guy instead of the top end of town.